Hi everybody, and welcome back to the Parents Game Guide. If you're new here, which pretty much everyone should be, this channel is dedicated to helping you know what's all in the games that your kids might be playing, so you can decide what kind of content to bring into your homes. Today, we're going to be covering a foundational topic in the gaming world called the ESRB, so let's get into it. Founded in 1994, the ESRB, or Entertainment Software Rating Board, is the council of people here in North America who give video games different ratings based on the age group they recommend the game is for. Other countries around the world have similar rating systems under different acronyms. It's essentially the same thing as the MPA for movie ratings with comparable age groups. There are currently 5.5 ratings, I'll explain the half in a minute, that exist within the rating system, so I'll cover those for you now. Starting things off, we have the E rating. The E rating stands for everyone, meaning this game is most likely okay for anyone to play it. There's not going to be anything shocking or sexual or graphically violent in the game, and you can usually tell through trailers or videos of the game that these types of games are heavily geared towards kids. The rating is similar to the G rating that we have for movies. Up next is the gaming version of PG, which is E10 and up. As you can probably guess, this is a rating that is suggested for kids aged 10 and up. There may be some mild fantasy or cartoon violence, think like Looney Tunes levels of violence, some minor sexual themes, and a little bit of language. Like the E rating, nothing too shocking. The next one is T for teen. These games might have some moderate violence, crude humor, infrequent use of strong language, suggestive themes, and minimal blood. Much of the content is probably not suitable for the younger gamers, but shouldn't be too bad for the older ones. As with the other two ratings, this one moves up the chain to PG-13. M is our fourth rating, which stands for mature, or ages 17 and up. This one is akin to the R rating for movies and features things like intense violence, blood and gore, sexual content, and or strong language. There may also be some existential and emotional themes that could be deeply triggering for some people and heavy to deal with, although I will mention that some T games also have hints towards those as well. As a side note for M games, though it isn't illegal in the US for an M game to be sold to a minor, most game distributors like GameStop or Walmart do ask to see some form of ID if the person buying the game appears to be under the age of 25. The last full rating on our list is AO, or adults only. Now, a disclaimer here, in my 23 years of gaming, I've never actually seen a game with this rating out in the wild, and in my research for this video, I found that since the ESRB's creation, they've only ever given the AO rating to 29 games, 5 of which have had changes made to the game to make the rating M instead of AO. Nintendo, Microsoft, and Sony, the parent companies of Nintendo, Xbox, and PlayStation respectively, all prohibit AO games to be published on their consoles, so the only way to come across an adults-only game is via Steam, a computer program where you can buy and purchase games. But even then, they're hidden on purpose by Valve, the parent company of Steam. These games may contain prolonged scenes of intense violence, graphic sexual content, and or gambling with real currency. I mentioned before that there are 5.5 ratings, so let me explain why the last one isn't considered to be a full rating. This rating is called RP, or rating pending. Typically, you'll only see this rating in promotional materials like trailers before the ESRB has officially given it a rating, after which they'll just swap out the RP for the rating that the game receives. There is another variation on this rating, RP likely 17 and up, which just means they haven't technically decided how they'll rate it, but you can bet it will be M almost 100% of the time. So that's the rating system for games. But we're not done yet, because the layers get deeper when we talk about content descriptors. There are 30 of them. Now don't worry, I'm not going to spend the time to list them all out and what they are, because that would take way too long and make for a not very interesting video. But for every game that I review and go over, I will make sure that I list out the content descriptors with their descriptions that the ESRB has used to generate their rating. I will also add that the content descriptors in no way are a perfect guidebook for what's in the games themselves, nor is this channel meant to be. To summarize the content of a 30+ hour game in a few paragraphs is near impossible. There are going to be some things that slip through the cracks. So please make sure that you are also checking out actual gameplay as well. When my editing skills get better, I'll show you some gameplay and screenshots of the games that I'm reviewing, as well as doing some videos where I play through some of my own favorite games. Before I end this video, there is one other important thing I need to cover, and that is the interactive elements that your child might be presented with. While these don't necessarily affect the rating that the game has, it does affect the content that the game could have. The ESRB website lists 5 that I'll cover briefly. Number 1 is in-game purchases. If you have been a parent over the last 6 or so years, you might have heard of a little indie game that the kids play now called Fortnite. I have read dozens of stories on social media of parents finding out that their child used their credit card to buy V-Bucks, or the in-game currency that the game has, to buy new outfits for their characters, different emotes, pickaxes, and things called battle passes. The game itself is free to play, but the developers of the game make their money off of these in-game purchases, and they're wildly successful at it. Many games offer such things to their players, like Candy Crush offering upgrades to help get through a particularly difficult level, or boost a player's score. A lot of these purchases are purely cosmetic, but some can really boost a player's ability to win in a multiplayer game, or even unlock better characters. Some offer new weapons with higher damage, or armor with better defense. Keep in mind that this does cost real-life money, even sometimes after you have paid $60 or $70 to buy the game. And quite honestly, it's something that a lot of gamers hate. EA. So we're on the same side in that regard. The second one is users interact. I feel like this one is pretty self-explanatory. A user of this game will be interacting with other users. And as we all know, the content that comes from other people is not always screenable, nor is it always appropriate. There might be cyberbullying, inappropriate conversations, lots of cursing, but the opposite can also be true. Friendships can be developed, heavy topics can be addressed, and communities can be built. My brother and I developed a friendship with a guy who lives in another country that we would regularly play games like Dark Souls with and goof around with online. The third one is shares location. Granted, I don't have a lot of experience in this regard, as I don't play games that do this, nor do I actually know of any games that do this. Even trying to search for games that share a player's location, I came up empty-handed. But I do know that it exists and that the ESRB has it in there for a reason. The fourth one is unrestricted internet, which again is pretty self-explanatory. It allows players to access the internet from the game itself. I also personally don't know of any games that do this, however, I do know that they exist. If I end up coming across any, I will make sure that I include that information as well as any that use shares location in my review. The fifth and final one is online music not rated by the ESRB. Occasionally games will include music that you can download to incorporate into the game. A lot of them being music-based games, just like Beat Saber or Just Dance. The ESRB hasn't looked into the content of the songs themselves to influence the game's rating, often because the games, just like the 2 I mentioned, are constantly adding songs into the game's repertoire or are being added manually by modders or other players. This is more of a pay attention to the music they're listening to kind of case, rather than what they're seeing on the screen. And that is it. I know that the video was not a review of anything technically, but I did want to make sure that there was some kind of foundation that I could build on so I wouldn't lose anybody when actually going into the reviews. There will be other videos like this in the future where I explain a little bit of gamer culture, the language that we use, and the different types of games to better showcase what I'm talking about, but those will come later as I am currently working on my first actual video game review. And finally, if you haven't yet, please like this video, hit the subscribe button along with ringing that little bell, and leave a comment down below. I would love to know what games you'd like me to go over, and am more than happy to answer any questions you might have. If the channel gets big enough, I am thinking I might do live streams where I can answer your questions in real time and truly interact with you guys. I will also be leaving a link to the ESRB's website. They do have some really great resources specifically made for parents to help you understand how games are rated, the council that is giving the ratings, and they even have some tips for gaming with your children and building that kind of interactivity with them. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. I love you all. Please be good to yourselves, and thank you so much for sticking through this one with me. I do hope that I was able to explain things in such a way that makes things a little bit easier to understand for you, and I will see you all in the next video.